just a lot of gibber yip yap. And I don't understand where it's coming from. I don't understand what you guys were expecting. Did you think that Trump, after he got hundreds of millions of dollars from Miriam Adelson? I'm so sick of this stupid thing we have to do where we pretend like he's just not already bought and paid for, which he was. But you know what the worst part of it? The worst part of it is it's by no means the worst guy he could have chosen anyway, so who gives a shit? It's not that I support Trump to begin with. It's not like I tell you to vote for him. We're not voting for him either way. But like what? Why is everyone like acting like this is the most disappointing thing ever? What were you expecting? They're like, "Oh, he's a Zionist." I'm like, what do you think? An anti-Zionist is going to be VP of the United States? Are you retarded? You know? What are you expecting? What do you think? And it's like these Groyper people, these far right people, they're always just bitching on their streams. They're like, "Oh my god, this is so bad. This is so bad." And it's like, yeah, well, your whole fucking political outlook is just speculation and hoping. Is it going to be our guy? Is it going to be our guy? You don't even believe in building politics and political authority yourself because you don't have a class analysis. You don't believe class analysis is important. So you're just hoping like some fucking guy who's already made it is going to throw money at you. You're a prostitute is what you fucking are. Right? When you don't have class analysis, when you don't have Marxism, all you have is speculation about which capitalist is going to throw their hundreds of millions of dollars your way so that it's going to be your guy. That's all they have. Is it going to be our guy? There's no our guy. Our guy is built by us. Our guy gets funded by our base. Our guy is accountable to us and responsible to us on an institutional level. That's what our guy is. Trump is not our guy. There's no candidate he could pick that would be our guy. Our guy is answerable to our party. If you have this different mentality, all you're doing is betting and speculating, treating politics just another cryptocurrency, hoping and praying it's going to go up or praying that it's not going to go down. But we don't believe in just an individual. We believe in the party, a party, the party. So people need to understand this. You don't do politics by speculating, "Oh, is this our guy or is this?" No, what are you? You're a fucking prostitute. What are you even saying? It's nonsense. It's total nonsense. Anonymous, what's up?
It's either class analysis or crypto coin analysis.
Exactly. It's class analysis or it's a scam. Class analysis is common sense, by the way. It's nothing contrived. It's nothing, it's nothing too complicated. It's very simple. You're either going to rely on the material support of the capitalist class, or you're going to rely on a mass base of the working class who can leverage their labor to, have power over the capitalists. Capital versus labor. Why is that so controversial? How come when I say that, these retards look at me funny with their fluoride stare? Damn! This guy's a commie. It's like, you're a fucking idiot. What about what I just said is so controversial? If you actually want to take on the system, you need to base yourself in a class which has its own leverage when it comes to power, rather than hoping and banking on the capitalist class to come and save you and speculating. Because you know what? You don't need to speculate. That's why I'm so sick of people acting and pretending like they're surprised by what happens in politics anymore. Why are you surprised? If you just follow the money, everything is predictable. If you can see, all the donors are going to Trump. All the big capitalists are starting to back him. Miriam Adelson, that's a proxy for U.S. foreign policy, throwing hundreds of millions Trump's way. Why do people have to sit here and speculate about these outcomes when we can actually have a rational way of pretty accurately inferring and just having a grasp on it's not even an inference, it's knowledge that Marxism gives you. You can know, there's no surprises as long as you understand the alignment of class forces. If the main forces being that are backing Trump are the capitalists, the ruling class, well, he's probably not going to go against the system all that much. I don't know why people act like they're realists, and then when I say, as a Marxist, hey, the guys that actually own our land and water and electricity and energy and own everything that we need to survive control the system. And there's not a lot of wiggle room to challenge that unless you build power in an alternative class base. And I say that, and they look at me like I'm fucking crazy. They look at me, I'm going to stop swearing. They look at me like I'm crazy. They look at me like I'm an idiot. Like they have this fluoride stare, and they're just staring at me. They're like, Haz, aren't you getting in on the crypto game and speculating? It's like there's something, they are so screwed up mentally, they can't even take a step back and realize, why are you gambling on something whose outcome can be known? We can know the outcome. You don't need to gamble. There's a rational way of discerning and understanding what's going on in America. But no, continue with your meme magic. Continue with your fucking Groyper frog, retard, Pepe the Frog, degenerate nonsense, and continue wishing for what outcome you want to happen. Continue wishing. And this speaks to a deeper point about why Marxism is necessary, and it's very simple. Why do you need to be a Marxist? Well, I'll tell you why. Because 99% of people who are dissatisfied with the system are dissatisfied with symptoms. And then they react. And then they react and overcorrect, and they become right-wing extremists, playing into the hands of what the people in power already want in the first place. Because the system says neo-Nazism is the only legitimate, powerful alternative. Not in the sense that they're going to overtly approve of it, but in the sense that they recognize it as a power. They don't recognize us as a power. They suppress any news of the possibility of us being a power. They don't even entertain it, right? So think about this for a second. Let's say you're a young man and you're in college, or you're in some corporate workplace. It's super politically correct. It's super inauthentic. It's super woke. Everyone's like a libtard. You know, you're getting grilled for jokes. You're telling jokes, and they're just starting to bite you and attack you. They're just saying things that just don't reflect reality, and you're just kind of like puzzled about why you can't even disagree with it without getting, attacked. And you are, in your heart of hearts, a normal person. You're not a freak neo-Nazi. You're not a hateful person. You're not someone who wants to be an extremist. But because of the overwhelming pressure, that's being exerted on your consciousness, you feel like the only outlet of being able to resist all of that libtard nonsense is just to go full Nazi. Well, what you've done is you've actually conceded to the liberal establishment its premises. You've conceded to them that they're correct. You're conceded to them that the only way to resist them is to be a hateful Nazi. You've conceded that to them because you have no way of resisting it. That's fine. You're just some guy who has no way of understanding anything, and you're just reacting to the symptoms of the system and its underlying disease. We can understand that. But please think for a moment, if you will. Think for a moment. Now you have this established way of reacting to woke, whatever you want to call it. It's an established way of reacting to it, and a well-oiled machine of a system that is producing it. So it's this false dialectic of them pushing the libtard stuff and you reacting in an extremist way, and then them reacting to your extremism, which further galvanizes them and their supporters, because at the end of the day, nobody actually wants Hitler to come back. Nobody actually wants to be a hateful racist. Nobody actually wants race wars and race riots and all this nasty stuff. What they really don't want is the poison of liberalism. They don't want this inauthentic, politically correct nonsense. That's what they don't want because it's fake. 99% of human beings are left wing. We all want what's good for society. 99% of people don't seriously believe in racism. They will joke about it. They will tell jokes and they'll be edgy because it's funny, and they'll have frustrations. But when push comes to shove in their heart of hearts, nobody seriously believes racism is good. Not seriously. Comedically, it's a different story. But seriously, nobody's actually a fucking racist in their heart of hearts. Unless you're an actual demonic Satanist. So 99% of people are actually left-wing. And they have no problem with being left-wing. What they hate political correctness. They hate this kind of libtard, like, cultural wokeness, whatever the fuck that is. Because it's just like, it doesn't let you breathe. It doesn't let you breathe. It's just so suffocatingly fucking cringe and false. And it's not even about what it does in terms of results. It's not like anyone has an issue with our system working in a way where we get free healthcare and we have a guaranteed job and a house and the system actually functions and works that way. It's just the way, in the name of this extreme moralizing, Jackman, what's going on? In the name of this extreme virtue signaling and moralizing, we're sacrificing effectivity. We're sacrificing functionality. We're sacrificing things looking good. Being actually competent just to feel fucking good about ourselves morally. That's what people can't stand. People are left-wing almost by nature, but they get sucked into this right-wing scam because of how libtards have hijacked, genuine left-wing sentiment and weaponized it to crucify people and berate them and scold them. And that's the actual issue, right? So, look, it's like you create this false dialectic, the liberal and the neo-Nazi, right? And then what's missing? The neo-Nazi is just reacting. Nick Fuentes is reacting. He goes, we need a Catholic integralist theocracy because I'm just going to look at the degeneracy of liberalism, and I believe in the opposite of that. So based. But there's no critical thinking. What is the root cause? Oh, it's the Jews. Like, even that is just some kind of symptom. It's not a real analysis of the system. Do you think this guy knows how the system actually fucking works? He says Jews. What is he actually talking about? He's not actually talking about anything concrete. He's talking about he's talking about leprechauns, like literal goblins. And psychologically it works when people hear that, oh yeah, it makes sense, but it's like, it's just a stand-in for actually being able to understand how anything works. But look, when push comes to shove, this is the thing, you have to stay with me now, right? When push comes to shove, there's no criticism of the property question. These huge corporations, BlackRock, they all are shaping society however they see fit because they actually own society. They own the land beneath our feet. They own the resources beneath our feet. They own the energy we need to keep our lights on. They own our food supply. They own our jobs. They own our factories. They own our infrastructure. They own it all. And they own you too, because most of you are in debt. And they own these things. They own these fundamental things that we need. And so, of course, if they have all that power, they're going to be able to try and engineer and shape society however they see fit. But why? How come none of these anti-woke people ever talk about that? They never talk about the property question. They never talk about the underlying ownership of our means of life and subsistence. That never can be called into question. Otherwise, you're a Marxist and you're a communist. So what? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with Marxism? What is wrong with communism? Think about it. What is actually wrong with that? It's a dirty word they're going to use, but what is actually wrong with it? Maybe you think there's something wrong with it because you're mentally cucked, because you've been programmed to never, ever touch on the property question. Never, ever touch the question of whether or not the fundamentals of life we should somehow be responsible for in a way that serves the common good. Never, ever go down that path, because that's communism. So what? So hateful neo-Nazism is better? Cannibalism is better? Genocide and race riots and all this nonsense is better? Or is the suffocation and the destruction of humanity under liberalism better? Think about it. Why is the communist alternative so, even if it's not demonized, why is it dismissed? The first thing people say is they're like, well, what about in the Soviet Union and China? And it's like, well, have you ever thought for once that maybe you were lied to about those countries and what happened there? Maybe it's based in lies. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist. By any means, I'm not a rocket scientist. But logically speaking, if you take away everything from the extreme 1% elite bloodsucker vampires that have owned these countries for generations and generations, I don't know. I kind of feel like you're going to make a lot of enemies, and they're going to commit their whole lives to smearing you and bullshitting about you and lying about you and using all of their resources that they still have left over when they flee the country to do that. And even if we ignored them, I don't know. I don't know. I think if you take power and cancel all of your foreign debt, you're giving a lot of powerful countries and their governments and their intelligence agencies an incentive to discredit everything you do and smear the shit out of you and launch propaganda campaigns against you. Is it really so implausible just to assume, even if you don't have evidence, that the international capitalist class was hell-bent on demonizing the fuck out of communism and making it and discrediting it and lying about it? Oh, they would never lie, though, right? They would never tell lies. The ruling class would never tell lies. But wait a second. Everyone's waking up to the fact that they're telling lies now. Everyone knows they told lies about the Iraq War. Everyone knows they tell lies now about literally everything. Why is it so implausible to assume that they would be lying about communist states, which fundamentally were challenging everything upon which the power of the ruling class stands upon? No, they would never lie about that, right? I mean, look, I don't know. Am I crazy? Is this ridiculous? It's kind of ridiculous how Marxism hasn't become popularized. Because most people are sheep. They see university campus kids flirting with some bizarre, I don't know, distorted version of Marxism, which primarily focuses on racial grievance and sexual grievance. And they're like, that's cringe. I don't want anything to do with that. But it's like, really? Are you just a sheep who's looking for herds and flocks to follow? Why don't you think about it yourself? Like, this thing that's so dangerous, maybe there was a concentrated effort to promote all of this cringe stuff to discredit it. Maybe. Is that outlandish? Go to Moscow. Look at the art produced by Marxism. Look at the art. Look at their metro. Look how beautiful it is. Look at their statues. Look at their architecture under the Soviet Union. Look at the actual things they built in devotion to these ideas and inspired by Marxism. Does that have anything in common with, like, woke stuff? Is there any similarity you can detect? Is there any similarity you can detect? You tell me. Like, you tell me. Much of that stuff is older than the Soviet Union. Well, Curling Nick, you're such a genius. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not talking about the older stuff. I'm talking about the stuff the Soviet Union built. And they had a official doctrine of art called socialist realism. So no, they weren't just repeating the past. It was a methodical, intentional form of art called socialist realism. And I want you to ask whether that has anything common with the woke stuff. Because here's my issue. Everyone is just so sick of woke, Star Wars. Yeah, these are very superficial symptoms. Very superficial symptoms. Very superficial. But the underlying meat and potatoes behind it, you're not allowed to talk about it. Otherwise, you get dismissed as a communist or a Marxist. And you know, these people, they are so contented with that. It's like that discredits you. Well, because you're a dishonest piece of shit. If you use communist as a pejorative just to discredit someone, you're dishonest. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You're not being honest. You're not thinking about these things for yourself. You're just relying upon stupid ideas people have because of propaganda.